Hi, this is Doug Wright, and thanks again for joining me in our series on the intersection of comedy and politics. And I'm especially excited about tonight's conversation because I'm welcoming Nancy Giles. And I'm going to tell you a little bit about her, but the most salient facts are she's a dear, dear friend of Jim Nicola, and she's a fan of the workshop. So it really feels like family night here. Nancy went to Oberlin College. She's an actress and a former Theater World Award recipient. She's a veteran of the famous comedy troupe Second City, and she's been featured in films like Working Girl and Big and the television show China Beach, which was a great success. And she has probably had guest appearances on almost every sitcom in the last couple decades, an amazing roster of shows. She's an Emmy Award-winning commentator from CBS's Sunday Morning. She's been a go-to guest on MSNBC. And she's one of those rare pundits and cultural commentators whose expertise ranges from how to find the right bra all the way to the particulars of last month's election. In short, she's an expert on what it means to be human in an often maddening and complicated world. She's not a comedian per se, but her commentary is always laced with humor, it's always trenchant, it's never cruel, and it's constantly illuminating. So let's welcome Nancy Giles.
Oh my Lord. I don't even know. Can we just end it there and let them bask in my credits?
And here's your Nobel Prize. No, I'm so pleased to have you here tonight. And
I'm thrilled to be here, Doug.
Yeah, and I'll say this, and I say it from the heart, and I say it on behalf of the entire workshop. Not only will this be fun for us and engaging for the audience, but just by appearing tonight, you're helping the workshop create content in a very challenging time. So this is truly a gift to us.
Well, it's the least I can do. And I know it's really hard. You know, what's funny is we take culture and things like that so much for granted. I think even those of us who do this for a living, and you know, life feels empty, just like empty. Concerts not there, theater, stand up, packed restaurants, just walking around the city. It just feels so weird, so quiet, so darn quiet and empty. So I'm happy to help with getting content going, certainly.
Oh, well, I'm so glad. Well, the impetus for these evenings that I'm doing, and you're on a roster of folks that includes Andy Borowitz from The New Yorker and The Borowitz Report, and the screenwriter Paul Rudnick.
Oh, my goodness.
Asif Manvi, the wonderful correspondent from The Daily Show. And tonight we have you. So it's an all-star lineup.
I'm honored. I think the world of those, of all of those guys. God, I feel so lucky. Gosh.
No, it's a great group. And this started when Jim and I were talking, and we were both positing that in this very complicated political moment, commentators like yourself and comedians on late night in particular have become, in a way, our most trusted vessel for the daily news because the newscasts have become so partisan, and comedy is always on a certain level about telling the truth. So I've started to feel like you guys are the true patriots of the moment. Do you think our theory holds water? Do you think it's an accurate one?
Well, I'll tell you, again, I'm honored to be included with those gentlemen because I think they really are more actively involved in what you described than I am. I've been struggling with comedy and politics, to be honest, since Donald Trump was elected. My hand, you know, I give it up for the nighttime comedians, for Colbert and Jimmy Kimmel and, you know, Jimmy. Oh God, what's the other Jimmy? Jimmy and Jimmy. Yes,
Alan.
Yes, I'm amazed. I mean, they have writers, and they're also, you know, they're very quick-witted. But I give them a lot of credit for being able to come up with things to make people laugh about a lot of the stuff that's been going on because I haven't been able to. It's a funny thing. When I first started doing commentaries for Sunday Morning, George W. Bush was in office, And I started out, it's funny that you mentioned bras and stuff. I talk about all kinds of things. By the way, there's been real revolution with women's underwear and what the definition of nude is. It's changed. I did a whole thing on that. And now a lot of bras, a lot of bra companies are coming up with like brown shades.
Oh,
and
fantastic.
So there's various nudes now, which is thrilling. Because I was at the end, I was going, this isn't nude. You know, well, that's not a good example. I'm wearing a black bra, but you know what I mean. But anyway, W was in office, and I took a lot of issue with a lot of the things that he did, and I was righteously indignant and writing these angry diatribes about this and that, and they were legitimate at the time. And I got very angry when Hurricane Katrina came around, and I wrote a commentary about that. Looking back, Doug, now I'm like, oh my God, those were the salad years. I almost started to write him a letter or a commentary letter a couple of years ago saying, I know you took us into an unjust war and all that stuff, but you have a heart and you're not the devil incarnate. And so I'm sorry that I, picked at you, because the truth of the matter is with this crew, it's been hard to find anything to say except my mouth hangs open. I'm agog. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I think a lot of people I've talked to would agree with you. They'd say that with him, it's so challenging because all you got to do is show the clip. You don't even have to make a joke.
Exactly.
And yeah. Now, do you think that the future, do you think January 20th will augur something different and you'll be able to wade into new waters that way?
I think so. I mean, I think just the idea that he's not gone yet, but that he lost the popular vote, he lost the electoral college, and he's still flailing around like a child having a tantrum going, yeah, 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 yeah. I don't hear anything you're saying. I'm not listening to the results. I'm not listening. I mean, it's eased up my angst, and I can start seeing little slices of humor. And the other thing is that Trump did that no other president did, even W, when I was talking about him, he's been taking up so much space in my brain. Like he's just this life succubus, he's everywhere. He's luckily in New York now, when you go up the West Side Highway, you don't see his name on all those buildings. Yeah. But between his insatiable need to be in the news, good or bad, and the fact that the news, for better or worse, is kind of led by the if it bleeds, it leads syndrome. And Trump is like, what is it? Now I'm losing words. What's the thing where you can't stop bleeding?
Like when you hemorrhage or.
It's not amblyopia. Amblyopia was what Charlie Brown had, and he wore an eye patch for a while. It's no, not anemia. Anyway, he's that constantly bleeding is what I was trying to link in a little joke. See what happens when I try to make a pun or something, it falls apart. I'm at an age, I think, where I'm losing my faculties for language, and so a good intention just kind of goes straight to hell, goes down the drain. So yeah, but anyway, he bleeds a lot, and it takes up all of the air in the room, and I want brain space back, and I feel a little bit of it coming in. You know what I mean?
Totally. Now, are there any times in your work in various platforms, are there any times that you've applied humor to a certain fraught situation and wish that you hadn't?
No, I hadn't. No, off the top of my head, I have to say, no, I really like the idea of trying to make somebody laugh. I love that. And I love the laughter, and laughter is a way in, whereas this kind of like yelling and debating and whatnot, it closes a lot of doors. And I recognize that, 73 million people feel way differently than I do, but about politics. But what's been nice about some of the stuff on Sunday morning that's kind of apolitical, or I could just make fun, is I'll get responses from people sometimes that are like, well, I might not agree with you, but I like how you said it, or you gave me something to think about, or it made me laugh. That's why I don't just do politics on that show. And when I'm on an MSNBC show, sometimes it's about politics, but other times it's about cultural things. And I'm happy to weigh in on a bunch of things. I mean, the very first piece I did for Sunday morning was this theory I had about high-heeled shoes being a conspiracy against women. And and in a way, I feel that there is some politics in that. I mean, political that word really covers a lot of territory, you know?
I would totally agree with you.
You know what I mean? Yeah. So at the beginning, I kind of shied away from people saying she's a political commentator. I'm like, no, it's more cultural. But boy, everything is meshed. Things have so kind of crossed over, especially, I think, in this last year. Goodness gracious.
Yeah, no, and I think you're absolutely right. Even a piece about high heels says so much about the way that we have certain expectations of women and their appearances, and what they should endure in order to achieve those appearances.
I know, it's not right. And for someone like me who was 6'1" in sixth grade, and my feet were already like a lady size 10 when I was in fourth grade, you know, my mom was like, you're already tall, you don't have to wear high heels. So I never really learned, which ended up being, without telling the whole story, it had certain challenges to the point where when I was on the set of Working Girl, thinking I looked like a hot tamale, and a guy in the crew, I thought he was flirting with me. He then said, "Are you male or female?" Because I was tottering around on the high heels, and he couldn't tell if I was a cross-dresser. And this is a true story, which I told once as part of a college graduation commencement speech about how really bad things can sometimes end up having a really good bounty to them, because that was part of my high heels are evil piece. But I didn't know this. There was a transsexual professor in the audience at this one commencement, and I got a really, she was very upset, an email saying how offended she was by what I said. And I wrote her back and I said, you know, not only did I not know that you were in the audience or know your circumstances, I'm sorry you were offended, but it was a true story. It's really what happened. So I don't know what to tell you, except, you know, if it's true, it's true. And it was traumatizing, but it ended up being a great illustration of why high heels can, you know, really screw someone. So there.
No, and I think like standards of appearance are highly politically charged.
Yes, they are.
You also said something else in that speech at Grinnell that I want to get right. The same evening that they gave you a Doctor of Humane Letters, as I recall.
That was such a proud, wonderful thing. I know.
It's amazing, amazing. But I loved when you said this. You said to the students, you will make mistakes, you'll get fired, you'll sleep with the wrong people, you'll work for free, you'll see others succeed while you fail. Life isn't fair, but there's comedy in the unfairness, and all of this will help you find your unique voice. So I want to ask, is that how you found yours? Through the inequity in the world?
Without really knowing it. I mean, I think I was, I mean, fifth of 7 children, parents who left the South to come north to like make a better life for their family, hardworking parents, lots of artistry in the house and whatnot. And yeah, I mean, like I was never in the theater clique, never, ever. I was like a sharecropper in Finian's Rainbow. And what's weird is it wasn't like I was so talented and no one noticed me. I wasn't so good. I sang in a very quiet voice, kind of like that. You know, I was lucky to be a sharecropper, but I would stand there even in junior high school with all this, like, it's not fair that so-and-so is the star. And in Gypsy, I thought, I've got to get a part as one of the Hollywood blondes. I've just got to. Nope. And then I was like, I hate them all. And that, I'm going to show them, that kind of I'm going to show them energy, it carried through for years. It was a little bit of a motor for me, like, this didn't work out, but somehow I'll show them. This didn't work out, I'll show them. This guy doesn't like me like I want him to, but I'll be a big star. He'll see me on the stage and I never could finish that sentence, but there was something there, you know? And that kind of, the losses and the things that didn't go my way ended up not only teaching me a lot of really good lessons, but it kept a fire kind of going. And it still goes a little bit now. It's not as, I'm older, I'm calmer, I'm medicated. That helps. You know, yeah. But one of my jokes used to be the 2 tools to success for anyone are therapy and medication. And I actually do believe that, though.
I would agree.
You know what I mean?
Completely.
But the things that didn't seem to go my way, which may seem petty looking back at them, they really did give me this motor and motivation. I mean, my credits are great. I did tour with Second City, but I never got a chance to open a show. And at the time, Second City in Chicago, urban center of one of the biggest urban centers in the country, had no Black people on its main stage. I was one of only, at that point, I think 3 in almost 50 years to have even been in the company. Shortly after I left, they started making changes and whatnot. But I was like, damn it, you know, I wanted to do things there that I couldn't do. And that stumbled me into doing kind of crappy stand-up storytelling. And then the solo shows that I did that I thought I created with my friend Ellie Covan at Dixon Place, which is a wonderful developmental theater in New York. She helped me. My first show was called The Wacky Side of Racism. And the second one was, oh gosh, Notes of a Negro Neurotic, which is still a title I'm hoping to use for a collection of essays. But through her, I was able to like develop these great stories, and the shows went well, but I couldn't get reviewed like I wanted. Passage Theater in Trenton produced my show, which was great. But I thought this is going to lead me to like an HBO special. No, it didn't. And I blew an audition for The Daily Show. That didn't work either. But then serendipitous things happened, and I ended up connecting with Erin Moriarty at CBS, who asked me to do a radio show with her. And because of that, she introduced me to Rand Morrison, who was the executive producer of Sunday Morning. And I went in and she said, you should do something. And I didn't even know really what she meant. So I pitched the high heels idea. And I'm sure you've experienced this, how difficult it is to try to explain to somebody why something's funny. Oh my God. It's the worst thing ever. But a couple of months later, they said, yeah, we've got you down on the schedule for this high heels thing. And I was like, whoops, right. And I was off to the races. That was a long sentence, but anyway.
No, but that's phenomenal. Well,
yeah.
The pieces that you've done, what's gotten the best response, and when have they really taken you to task?
Hold on a second, Doug. I don't know if I can continue this interview because my hair looks really lopsided. Oh, dear God. What's wrong here? And then when you try to flatten you're doing it opposite. Okay, I can live with it. What did you say? I got very distracted.
No worries. No worries. Of all the pieces that you've done, what got the very best response, and when did they really take you to task?
I was taken to task a lot when I did more commentary pieces during the Bush presidency than actually Obama's and Trump's. I haven't done, well, I did one. Okay, so I think the one I was taken to task the most for was my commentary about Hurricane Katrina, where I basically said that Bush didn't give a damn, that and there were double standards with Black people being termed looters and white people being termed getting food for their family and all kinds of stuff. Anytime I commented on Bush, I would get, really bad stuff. In fact, I still haven't opened some of those emails because some of them were so vile. And people have a tendency with women to make all kinds of inappropriate sexual remarks. I'm Black. They would use N all the time, say I was a nappy-headed B, all kinds of crap. But I did recently get a lot of really positive, beautiful responses on a commentary about Karens. Another person on the show did a piece about Karens that seemed to indicate that Karens, it wasn't nice to term Karens. And it seemed like to me, some of the point about why Karens were called Karens were missed. So I just sort of reframed it and talked about like the historical impact of that kind of behavior and tried to add in a little, bit of my own microaggression experience and whatnot. And this happened in July of this year with the turmoil with George Floyd and Ahmaud Arbery. And I've got really, really beautiful responses from people. And it wasn't a piece yelling at Karens per se or yelling at white people. It was really more me reflecting on how these videotaped events really opened a lot of my friends' eyes, friends who were white, who understood, they thought they understood, but when they saw what went down, it changed their understanding in a completely different way. And it was just really a blessing to have these people say, I don't think I'll ever really understand. That was a huge thing. So that meant a lot to me.
That's a stunning piece. I got occasion to see
I appreciate that.
It's amazing. And also, again, we could call it a cultural topic, but it's got incredible political
Of
weight.
course it does.
Yeah,
Of course
yeah.
it does.
And it seems like when we look back at 2020, we have the pandemic, but we also have the birth of Black Lives Matter. And do you feel that we are finally reckoning with racism in a new way? Sometimes I feel like we are, and sometimes I worry that we're just being reminded how far we still have to go. What do you think?
Oh, oh, it does feel like something different happened. It does. And I think a big part of that was that there were those three critical things that were on videotape: George Floyd, Ahmaud Arbery, and that woman in Central Park. Which, although the gentleman was not killed or beaten up by police, it was revelatory about people's entitlement and manipulating a situation. And we all got to see someone bold-faced lie and put this guy's life in danger, you know? So I think that was big. And I think that moved people or made people aware in a lot of ways that they weren't. And I've seen a lot of, certainly at CBS, Viacom CBS, they had lots of conversations about race and politics. And we had a couple of those at Sunday morning where people finally started to air some things that have been going on. I mean, it's a slippery slope. You want to say what you want to say, and you also don't want any recriminations to happen.
Sure.
But it does seem like a lot of different corporations and a lot of things are not only making statements in support of Black Lives Matter, but they're backing up the statements and the sympathy with actions, and or they're seeing financial ramifications if they don't. And they're seeing financial ramifications when they do, you know? As somebody who also does voiceovers, like I've seen, because I grew up watching TV and loving commercials. I've seen a huge shift in who's on commercials. Lots more people of color, lots more interracial families, lots more
gay couples,
middle class and gay couples. Yes, lots, you know, there's it just does seem like that something has changed. I don't think it'll ever be perfect. And part of the thing is that the work getting there, it's okay for us to keep working at it and whatnot. I don't know that there's ever a goal that's going to be achieved per se, but it does feel like things have changed. Now, having said that, at the same time, I was shocked that 73 million people who saw the kind of president that Trump was and his lack of not only empathy, but care, and that they came out and voted for him. That was shocking. That really was shocking.
Disturbing. Now, I'm going to do something very perilous, which is the white middle-aged guy. I'm going to posit something about race.
Go for it.
I do feel what feels different to me that I think is actually exciting and overdue, and what feels new about this reckoning is that I've always been taught equality and I've always been taught respect and all of those things, but I have never before been asked to examine how my innate privilege has brought me things in the world without trying, and how it is now up to me to cede that privilege and give the floor to someone else for a while, pass the mic, if you will. And that until we, as the middle-aged white guys of the world, start ceding that privilege and giving the space and the voice and the platform to others, we're never going to achieve what we hope to. And that to me feels really different. Yeah,
that is. The recognition of the privilege is huge right there. The part two that you mentioned, ceding the mic, that's a struggle, because when you don't even see how you can be born on third base, and just when you won't even see that, and not you, but one, and there's no recognition of that. No, but I mean, but without that recognition, forget about ceding the mic, because that's the way it's been and that's the way it should be. Lordy, I remember, years ago on Chris Matthews' show, I think, or no, I think it was, I don't remember what it was, but this was why Pat Buchanan finally was bounced off of MSNBC. He said something like, white men built this country and it's a white man's country and blah, 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 blah. Well, you know, there are a lot of people that feel that way. There are a lot of people that think that, you know, Black people should get over slavery, that it's not a big deal that we were brought here as property, that there weren't systems in place to keep that race of people down, to make it harder for us to achieve. They don't want it. They're like not having it. And it almost feels like someone said, I wish I could remember what the quote was, but it was something like, now because I'm, you know, postmenopausal, I'm not even going to remember the quote. Okay. It had to do with something like equality to many people feels like oppression to some white people. Like just trying to level the playing field feels like they are being oppressed. And it's rough. It's rough when a person gets to a successful position and they're a person of color, and so many people are like, well, that's why, you know, it's because they're Black. No one ever says it's because they're white, you know, because white maleness has always sort of been the default, you know. I didn't start it that way, but your point about the recognition, that's huge. And for many people, that recognition is not something that makes them comfortable. It makes people uneasy and defensive, and they don't want to, you know, and it's a begrudging kind of handing over of the mic, but it's, you know, it's not going to be comfortable. It's not comfortable when things have always swung one way and they're trying to kind of creak a little bit the other way, you know. I recognize that. But yeah.
It's you know, it's all everybody committing to living in a little discomfort for a while for some greater good at the end of it.
And the discomfort is a good thing, and being able to deal with that and be okay with that, you know, and to have a dialogue, to talk about these things, and hopefully in a way that doesn't get other people like, well, you should know this, that, you know, whatever. It's wild. It's some wild stuff.
Yeah. And I think so much of when you talk about those 73 million people, I do think that so much of it is still this kind of racist reaction to the Obamas, you know, and the fact that
oh my God,
years,
I know. And I wasn't one who thought, you know, racial, you know, everything was copacetic once he was elected. I never thought I would live to see it. I really didn't. I was shocked. And then so, like, I think part of why this has been so hard was because it was such a thrill to have him at the top, to have him and Michelle representing our country, just this beautiful family. And, you know, both of them like didn't come from money, really made it on their own merit. It was like incredible. But boy, oh boy, a lot of people didn't dig it, couldn't handle it, didn't want that. I mean, you know, I'm sure books are going to be written about how things did that complete 180 to go from somebody that was so thoughtful and measured and caring and educated to a dingbat, you know, and a TV star, basically a reality TV star. But the thing is that people forget is that NBC gave him 14 seasons to drum into certain people's minds that he was this successful businessman when he really wasn't, you know, when he'd gone bankrupt and the whole, in fact, they even shot the show when they were in supposedly the Trump offices. Those weren't the Trump offices. Apparently they went to scope it out and decided they were too shabby looking. So they had to like make up their own office to make it look, you know, the paneled walls and the leather chair and you're fired, you know, it was all up. It was TV. The whole thing was a myth.
So do you think those 73 million people have thrown their support behind a fictional character? Is it fair to say that?
As much as I can make an assumption like that about the whole, maybe not all of them, but I think that helped. I think it was a very, you know, it's just watching that documentary on the Reagans, and Reagan was another one, although he was slicker, but he was polished. He was an actor. He knew how to appear. He knew how to present himself and whatnot. But it was a myth. I mean, when you go back and dig and you see some of the things that he did and some of the tactics that he used that are very similar to Trump's, but much subtler, much more wholesome looking, except AIDS. It wasn't even wholesome. He just tried to like look the other way. He did the same thing with AIDS that Trump in his way has done with COVID-19. You know, oh, it's, you know, no, what did you say something? You know, that kind of stuff, you know.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
Anyway, yeah.
So one of the things that makes your voice so valuable is your point of view and the fact that in the course of your average day, you can observe something or come across something that most of us, it would either go unnoticed or we'd have no feeling about it, and that you can suddenly elevate it and give it a kind of platform and notice it for us and then explicate it for us. Can you say, what are the kind of things that capture your eye?
Well, number one, that's such a flattering compliment, and I appreciate it. It makes me sound a lot more with it or something that I really feel that I am. Okay, so I've been taking notes on things for like many, many years, and sometimes these little notes end up being the germ of an idea for something. You know, you're a writer. You know, we hear things, we do things. I don't know if it's okay to curse on this. Is it okay to curse?
It's less than public access cable. You can go wild.
The only reason I ask is because one of the best examples of like something had to do with something I overheard some teenage girls saying on the one train as it passed 66th Street on the West Side. And I think they were getting out of either Performing Arts High School or Martin Luther King High, whatever it was. They were talking at this, just yelling. I mean, you know, if you're on the subway, pre-COVID, when you would be on the train, when school lets out, it would go from being quiet to just noise, you know.
Totally.
And these two girls were talking, and one girl said to the other, "Bitch, you must be eating Wheaties because you be talking like a champion." And I heard that line, and I kind of went, "What?" And I was like, "That's genius. Breakfast of Champions. That's what Wheaties are." She's connected that, and it's like, it was just a great line. And I wrote it down. I never really I either wrote it down or I just never forgot it. I thought, oh my God, that's so great. And I did end up writing a character around that line because it was so good. So it's things like that, little things sometimes that occur to me, like struggling with weight here and there. I realized how much stretch fabrics really meant to me. That ended up being a commentary. Oh gosh, I'm trying to, and the thing about bras, you know, bra colors and whatnot, that, you know, that became something about just the whole process. And oh, that's, you know, so little things like that that kind of catch my eye or make me think. Procrastination, as someone who claims to be a writer or creative person, I started writing about procrastination and then procrastinated writing about the procrastination because I was like, la, 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 noticing all kinds of things, you know. Lately, I don't even know if it's a joke or what, but I'm going to say this out loud because I keep forgetting to write it down. I've been listening to a lot of old Ray Charles, who's just magnificent. But I've been wondering when I listen to some of his things like Georgia on My Mind, he's like rocking and doing this whole Georgia. And then you hear these white voices going, Georgia on my mind. And part of me wants to know, like, was that Ray's choice? Or was that the album? Was that the company trying to like neutralize it? I've gotten used to it, but it's like, I keep wondering who put them in there, you know? I can't stop loving you. It sounds like it's like the new Christy Minstrels.
Oh, that is hilarious.
Or Up with People. And it doesn't, it's like, what's going on? So I don't know where that's going to go, but I've been thinking about that and wondering, I want to go do some research and find out whether that was forced on Ray or what, because he was, you know, he was pretty vigilant about his artistry and what happened. I think he owned his stuff too. So yeah. Anyway, so it's notions like that if I can write them down and give myself the space and time to do something with, they'll become something. But it's a mystery. You're a writer. It's a mysterious thing.
It is. I had one sort of grandiose philosophical question to ask you that I think you already answered. And I was going to ask you if you'd ever felt that comedy itself has the potential to change the world.
Oh, hell yeah.
You illustrated it beautifully when you told the bra story. You held up a bra that was bright pink, and you said, "This isn't
nude."
And now there's a whole new line of colors for women.
Boy, of course, I thought, why did I patent that? Why didn't I do something? I could have been rich, you know.
But tell me more. So you think that is true?
I do, because it brings people together. It's one of those things that really can unite people. I mean, and it can change perspectives, and it can, yeah, it just can. Music, art can do that in a lot of ways that a lot of things can't. And I think if you can make somebody laugh, you're halfway in. You know, you're halfway into a conversation. I was very much influenced by Carol Burnett, watching her. And some of my favorite moments in life when I was doing more public speaking is I'd always include, as part of the speaking gig, like 15 or 20 or so minutes after I give my presentation for Q&A. The secret behind that is this. When I was signed by the speakers agency, I went through their catalog and was looking at some of the really cool people that they managed. And one of them was someone I also idolized, Nora Ephron. Oh. And what they do, I'm with, this is called Royce Carlton, but now they're ICM speakers. But in their old catalog, they used to have like the different topics that you could book the different people to talk about. And with me, it's some race stuff, and it's some, you know, size issue. I can't even remember. I have a couple of funny things. But with Nora Ephron, here was what she was booked to do. It was called An Evening with Nora Ephron. And I thought, that's what I want. That's what I want. Like, we're talking like I want to be at that kind of level where maybe I have enough to say, and maybe I'm at enough of a level where I can sort of, I don't have to write anything. I can sit back, relax. Somebody can, you know, ask me some great questions. If I can cut a few laughs, that's great. And then I take questions from the audience. And I just love that. And I remembered how that was one of my favorite things that Carol Burnett did. It was just wonderful. And those kind of connections, again, even if people don't necessarily agree with some of the stuff that I say, it's great. Just the talking and the laughing and the understanding. It can really bring a lot of things together.
And do you ever feel that because you're an African-American woman, there's an expectation that you'll talk either about race issues or women's issues? And do you ever feel like that's an unfair kind of straitjacket to put on you?
Oh, you know, it's part of who I am. So I'm kind of used to it. And it's okay, because I think one of the things that's changing is that people are beginning to understand that. I used to have people, I'd say, you know, here's a very important thing about race. You might want to write this down. And a few times kids actually pulled out their, you know, not all Black people are alike. And it's a basic thing. But even when it comes down to language and how you express yourself, part of why I started doing comedy was there was this running theme in my life that between Black people and white people, that I wasn't Black enough. I didn't sound it. I had friends that were white. I wasn't this, I wasn't that. And it was difficult. And then it became, as I got older, kind of funny and something that I could have fun with. And, you know, I started out reading a radio spot for Crisco Oil that I auditioned for. And at first I was like, I know what they want, but I just don't want to do it. And then I was like, oh, all right. And it was like, girl, how'd you make that fried chicken? You know, whatever. But being able to be me and talk about different things in unique ways, I think people are getting it. They're getting that there's not just one Black experience, that anybody who's Black and has had an experience is living a Black experience, you know? So, yeah, so that's been, I will say this, when I was in college studying writing, I felt very, I felt my writing teachers didn't, and they were white, but I've had similar things happen sometimes with Black folks too. They felt that my writing wasn't authentic enough. I liked comedy. Their idea of Black authenticity was Alice Walker and Toni Morrison, and they're wonderful writers, but I always felt like they wanted, you know, they really wanted me to come out with the real truth, you know, molestation, beating, blah, blah. No, you know, no. I'm going to talk about living in Queens and, you know, wanting to be Marlo Thomas. And that's, you know, that's my reality. So I think it's changed. You're seeing different views of people. So I don't mind it as much. I'm happy to be who I am and the gender I am and the race that I am and looking at things through that lens. I don't mind at all.
I've taught periodically, and I'll read these articles in the New York Times and elsewhere talking about cancel culture and students being triggered in
Oh.
class and
Oh.
certain subjects that cannot be broached for fear of causing offense. As someone who earns a living from speaking her mind, do you feel inhibited at all by this new cancel culture phenomenon?
I've heard about it, and every time I hear about it, I say to people, "You mean what?" I have friends that are teachers, that are professors and whatnot in college, and I've heard about these things that can't be said, or if something is considered triggering, the student can leave the room and go into like a quiet place or something like that. Or I have a friend who said to a girl, "Just hold on one second, dear." She used the word "dear." And this student of color was incredibly offended and went to like she got written up for it. It's so I think everybody needs to just calm the F down. Although I understand, wanting to be heard and wanting to be respected, and I get that, but I think something's gone a little. I mean, I don't think I could. And one of the things I always thought I wanted to do maybe was teach. I don't know that I could teach under these circumstances. I'd be afraid.
Yeah.
Are you facing, are they giving you guys like long, HR things about what you can and can't do? And
well, I've been lucky because I just tend to sort of duck in for a lecture here or a lecture there or a weekend seminar. So I don't have a regular gig. So they never capture me long enough. I'm usually on a plane before it becomes a problem, which thank God.
I like that.
Yeah, it's a lucky thing.
Doug Wright has left the building. Yes.
One thing, I found a fancy quote from George Orwell that I really loved. And he said, every joke is a tiny revolution. Do you think that's true?
Oh, how cool. Mm-hmm. Wow. Yeah. I mean, I don't really write jokes, but I do think that because there's a certain level of intelligence and wit, and you have to think about it, and those things can like be revolutionary. When I listen to, gosh, in retrospect, when you think of like what Lenny Bruce went through with the stuff that he was trying to do and how it was, considered immoral and vulgar and whatnot, and now where people are now. But yeah, I think that's a great, I agree. I do agree. I think, and again, it goes back to what the power of artistry is, how we can change how people think, or not even change, just like open people's minds to things they might not have ever thought of before. This is a strange example, but my parents never used the word nigger. Now, I don't know if that's going to mean that we're going to be bleeped, but they never used that word. And I am somebody who, I don't like it. Every time I hear it, it's like a stab in the gut. I don't understand why my race has decided that, you can dance to that word. I think it's a confusing message to people who aren't Black of what you can say and what you can't. But that's just what I think. Other people think it's a way of reclaiming it. It's a way of this. We own it. It's a term of endearment. I don't see it that way. Having said all that, a comedian, he's more than a comedian. He's a humorist and a wonderful actor. And one of Dave Chappelle, he has this sketch on Chappelle's show where he plays a milkman to a white family, and their last name is Nigga. Okay?
Wow.
So if you haven't seen it, and my father, who was a very like gentlemanly, kind man, who I say never said that word, and it was just not even part of our vocabulary. I watched that with him, and we laughed so hard we were crying, and it was funny because he took it. It was different than when it's in a song and people are dancing and whatnot, and it's different than going. I can't quite explain it, but he put a different perspective on it. Yeah, I've thought of that a lot because words are very powerful. They have a lot of meaning. but then maybe they don't, but then there's, so.
It's funny. This is about your experiences, not mine, but I'll tell you briefly. I was working on a screenplay with this wonderful director, a woman named Maggie Betts, and she's African-American, and there is an African-American character in the story. And she was going over and she was giving me notes for a rewrite. And she asked me to insert that word in one of these characters' lines. And I said, oh, I see why you want that. I see why it makes it a more trenchant line. I see why it speaks to the character. It's kind of a brilliant idea. Could you please either put that in a memo from you to me that we need that word in the line, or can you make that change on set with the actor? Because I'm not going to type that word in the script, because that's not really my prerogative. And she was incredibly amused, and she said, so you won't even type that word for me? And I said, no. And she said, I think I like that about you.
You know what, Doug? I agree with Maggie. I like that about you. I have, and I don't think it's a double standard, because that's how I feel. I don't, I have a problem with like Quentin Tarantino, who I think he won an Oscar for the best screenplay in a script that had that all in it. But again, it's like, at the same time, I don't feel like we should say to an artist, you can't do this and you can't do the other. But it is weird. That's, having said that though, I was watching Blazing Saddles one day on, like, I don't even know if USA Network exists anymore, come to think of it. But anyway, I was watching it on some cable channel, and they bleeped out all the ends, and it didn't make sense. It didn't make sense.
Yeah. No, that is wild.
Right? So, and you can't take the ends out of Mark Twain. You can't. But there's schools of thought among some white people that we need to do that. No. So maybe I don't know what I'm talking about either. But I agree with Maggie, the director. I like you.
Well, but also what you're saying, it seems like such an important distinction. You can't critique history unless you can preserve it. And sometimes preserving it means keeping the uncomfortable material intact, right?
Right. But having said that, I have no problem with getting rid of every Confederate statue that's around until I'm not saying they need to be destroyed. Let's put them in a museum, put them somewhere. That we should see that as a country, that in certain parts of the country, these people were deified and they were honored and whatnot. I'm not saying erase it. We just don't, it doesn't have to be in public spaces. It's time to honor other people, don't you think?
Emphatically.
Please.
Yes, I happen to be president of the Dramatists Guild, and in the interest of honoring other people,
congratulations.
Well, thank you. I'll probably step down.
Was it a landslide? Was it? No, is it an elected position? How does that go?
Within the council, it's all. But all I really wanted to say was that I'm incredibly proud of our Lilly Foundation, which deals with women's issues in the theater, under the leadership of Julia Jordan and Lynn Nottage. We have funded the first statue of a female playwright ever to go up in New York City, and it's going to be Lorraine Hansberry. So in terms of who we venerate, I think that's changing. I think it's really
how
changing.
Wonderful. She deserves a theater named after her too, but that's wonderful. Completely. I got my equity card playing Beneatha in A Raisin in the Sun at the Goodman Theater in Chicago.
Of course, we love the Goodman. That's amazing.
Yeah. Well,
even I've kept you way longer than our guaranteed 30 minutes. And I just want to say that even though, well, you don't write jokes per se, but in your beautifully observed commentary, I think you still cause a million tiny revolutions. And for that, we are so grateful. And Nancy, this has just been an exhilarating conversation. And dare I say it, a highly political one. And
politically charged, Doug.
Charged, that's what it was.
No, thank you so much. I just keep, every once in a while, I keep looking at my hair and it looks like Reagan. It's like, I think it's a shadow or something. And it's so, but I care, but I don't care, but I can't get it right. But anyway, I'm way prettier than this may reflect.
You look great. We're all good.
Oh, Jesus. Anyway, there I am going right back to like women and, objectifying myself. But anyhow, totally. I think you're such a presence, and your work is so beautiful. And like I
thank
said,
you.
when I got your email, I was so honored to be asked, and to talk to you is just a great honor, because I think your work is just stellar. So thank you for all the things that you do, and for your kindness to me. I really appreciate it.
Oh, thank you so much.